Welcome. This is the story of how Berkshire Hathaway grew from a struggling textile mill into the world's most admired investment company, guided by the calm wisdom of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Relax and let their gentle journey unfold. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe before you fall asleep, but only if you really like the content I make. Also, write in the comments where you are from and when you are watching. It is so interesting to see where people are watching from around the world. Thank you. Let us begin, not in the fevered rush of markets, but in the measured dawn of American industry, where the story of Berkshire Hathaway quietly took root. Close your eyes and imagine yourself drifting backward in time, the air around you thickening with the mist of memory. The year is 1889, in the gentle valleys of New England. The mornings begin not with the shrill urgency of alarms, but with the slow, familiar routines of towns built on water and work. You find yourself in Adams, Massachusetts, a town cradled by low, rolling hills, where the Housatonic River moves at its own unhurried pace, its banks thick with trees and wildflowers. It is here that the Hathaway Manufacturing Company was founded, joining a growing constellation of mills and factories that quietly reshaped the American landscape in the decades following the Civil War. The world you enter is quiet but purposeful. Brick mill buildings, sturdy and plain, line the riverbanks. Their tall, arched windows catch the first pale light of morning, and inside, the air is a tapestry of scents and sounds. The steady click of looms, the whisper of thread, the faint, sharp tang of cotton dust, the muted murmur of workers' voices beneath the hum of machinery. Each day follows a rhythm as reliable as the turning of the earth. Men, women, and sometimes children rise before the sun, dress in simple, durable clothing, and make their way by foot or horse-drawn wagon to the factory gates. There is a comfort in this sameness, the quiet dignity of earning a living with one's hands, and the small, daily rituals that lend meaning to each passing hour. Inside the mill, the air is thick and warm, and the noise becomes a kind of lullaby, constant, enveloping, never harsh enough to jar, but insistent enough to drown out idle thought. You imagine yourself at one of the long rows of spinning frames, fingers nimble as you feed raw cotton into the hungry mouth of the machine. Your hands move with the muscle memory of countless repetitions, and your mind drifts, not to dreams of fortune, but to the steady business of the day ahead. For the workers of Hathaway and its soon-to-be partner, Berkshire Fine Spinning Associates, another mill company founded in 1888 in New Bedford, the rhythm is universal. The early start, the mid-morning pause, the quiet camaraderie of shared labor. At noon, the whistle blows, and you step outside for a brief respite. The sun is bright on the cobblestones, and the river sparkles with reflected light. A simple meal, perhaps a wedge of bread and some cheese, is shared among friends and neighbors. And for a moment, the factory's constant song is replaced by laughter and quiet conversation. When the break ends, the workers return to the orderly world of the mill, where each motion, each breath, is part of a vast invisible machine, a community of hands shaping cotton into thread and thread into cloth. The managers, too, play their part, moving quietly through the rows, all the while balancing the endless pressures of cost and efficiency. The days are long but unremarkable, marked less by dramatic events than by a slow, patient accumulation of effort. Paydays come and go, bringing with them both relief and worry, for the wages are modest, and the work, though steady, offers little room for extravagance. In the evenings, the mill's great iron doors close, and families gather around kitchen tables lit by oil lamps, sharing the news of the day and planning for the week to come. As the years drift by, the world outside the mills begins to change. The arrival of electricity in the early 20th century brings subtle transformation. The hum of steam engines is gradually replaced by the softer, more reliable drone of electric motors. Lighting becomes brighter, the air a little clearer, the risk of fire diminished but never entirely gone. The rhythm of life, however, endures, steady, unhurried, reliable. You notice how each decade leaves its mark. In the 1910s and 1920s, the mills bustle with energy. Orders are strong, and there is hope in the air. New machinery is installed, the buildings are repaired, and the workers still, mostly from the same families, generation after generation. With them a sense of pride in their craft. Cotton from the southern states arrives by rail, and bales are stacked high in the warehouses, their scent mingling with the ever-present smell of oil and soap. For the towns themselves, Adams, New Bedford, Fall River, and others, the presence of the mills is both blessing and burden. They provide employment, but also set the tempo of daily life. The whistle marks not only the start and end of shifts, but also school bells and shop hours, weddings and funerals. Entire neighborhoods are shaped by the needs of the mill, from rows of company-owned houses to small shops selling cloth remnants, sewing needles, and loaves of bread. Yet, for all the continuity, there are hints of unease beneath the surface. The textile industry, once the beating heart of New England, faces growing competition. Southern mills, with cheaper labor and newer buildings, gradually begin to draw business away. It is a quiet shift. At first, a few lost orders, a little less. Over time, a sense of uncertainty whispered in break rooms and at church socials. The mill managers, for their part, become ever more cautious, watching costs, negotiating with unions, tightening the rules where they can. Still, for decades, the mills of Berkshire and Hathaway endure, carried forward by the rhythm of their workers and the gentle persistence of daily life. Children grow up hearing the stories of the mill, learning the names of the machines, understanding the value of patience and the importance of community. Some dream of better futures, but many expect to spend their lives much as their parents did, rising before dawn, laboring in the soft, steady light of the spinning room, going home each night with clothes scented faintly of cotton and oil. By the time the 1930s arrive, the world beyond the mills is restless and uncertain. The Great Depression spreads its quiet shadow, and orders slow to a trickle. The mills respond as best they can. Hours are cut, wages trimmed, yet the doors remain open just barely. For many, the factory is not only a place of work, but a symbol of stability in an unsteady world. Through it all, the rhythm endures, the same whistle, the same routines, the same sense of belonging to something larger than oneself. As you move through these decades, imagine the small details of each day, the scratch of a ledger in the manager's office, the distant clatter of carts on stone floors, the gentle thrum of rain on the factory's slate roof. Picture the soft glow of late afternoon sunlight filtering through high, dusty windows, and the quiet satisfaction of finishing a bolt of cloth well made. Each moment is ordinary, yet together they form the fabric of a company's life, a company that, though still humble, is destined for quiet transformation. In 1955, a change comes that few outside the industry would notice, yet it is a pivotal moment, the merger of Berkshire Fine Spinning Associates and Hathaway Manufacturing. Creating Berkshire Hathaway Inc., the union is practical. Born of necessity, as both companies seek to withstand the relentless pressures of Southern competition and changing markets. Daily life continues much as before, but the world is subtly different, a little less certain, a little more wary, yet still held together by the patient threads of habit and hope. As this first part of our journey draws to a close, the mills of Berkshire Hathaway remain much as they have always been, steadfast, a little worn, and quietly alive with the rhythm of their people. The looms still turn, the workers still gather, and each day unfolds with the same gentle cadence as the one before. It is a world shaped not by dramatic events, but by the quiet persistence of ordinary lives, a world where change comes slowly, almost imperceptibly, and where the seeds of greatness are planted in the rich soil of repetition and routine. And so, as the evening settles over the mill towns of Massachusetts, you may imagine yourself stepping out once more into the cool night air. The sound of the river soft in the distance, the scent of cotton still lingering on your hands. The story of Berkshire Hathaway is just beginning, its quiet foundation laid in the daily rituals and steady hopes of generations. As time unspools through the fabric of the 1940s and 1950s, the mills of Berkshire Hathaway settle into a familiar, if somewhat wearied, rhythm. The Great Depression has receded, replaced first by the industrious urgency of the Second World War, when cloth is needed for uniforms, tents, and blankets, and then by the brief optimism of the post-war years. Orders trickle in, and the factories continue, not in triumph, but in a gentle persistence. The community is held together by habit, tradition, and the steady hands of those who have always worked the looms. Yet, in the hush of daily life, quiet signals of decline become more difficult to ignore. The buildings, once models of modern industry, show their age. Windows rattle in the winter winds, and the machinery, despite careful maintenance, bears the scars of decades of labor. Young people, sensing opportunities elsewhere, begin to drift away from the old mill towns, seeking work in the cities or in the new industries of America's expanding post-war economy. The leadership of Berkshire Hathaway, men with names etched on brass office doors, watch with a kind of resigned pragmatism. They know that cotton, once the king of textiles, is increasingly losing ground to synthetic fibers and cheaper southern labor. Their ledgers grow thinner, meetings lengthen, and decisions, once routine, are now colored by the cautious hope that something, a new client, a new product, might change the tide. But in another corner of America, in Omaha, Nebraska, another story is quietly unfolding. Here, the landscape is different. Wide streets, gentle plains, and a town shaped less by factories than by the slow, steady rhythms of Midwestern life. It is the home of a boy named Warren Buffett. From a young age, Warren is captivated by the movement of money, not in the feverish, speculative sense, but as a kind of puzzle, a quiet game of logic and observation. His earliest memories, softly colored by the quiet order of the 1930s and 1940s, are filled with numbers, with ledgers, with the crisp feeling of dollar bills carefully counted and saved. He reads endlessly stories of the great financiers, Benjamin Graham above all, whose principles of value investing will soon shape Warren's life and, eventually, the fate of Berkshire Hathaway itself. Warren's days, too, follow a comforting repetition. He delivers newspapers, collects used golf balls to resell, and carefully tracks every penny. There is little drama in these efforts, only a soft, persistent curiosity and a hunger to understand how value is created, preserved, and sometimes lost by the 1950s. Warren Buffett is a young man, already deeply immersed in the world of investments. He studies at Columbia, learns directly from Benjamin Graham, and returns to Omaha to start his own investment partnerships. His methods are patient, analytical, and like the textile workers of Massachusetts, rooted in the comforting discipline of routine. While Berkshire Hathaway continues its slow march, Buffett is quietly building a reputation. His approach is unhurried, careful. He invests in companies whose market prices are, in his careful estimation, lower than their true worth. His days are filled with research, reflection, and quiet conversations with trusted friends. As the 1960s dawn, the world seems to speed up America's cities hum with the energy of change. But Berkshire Hathaway remains stubbornly old-fashioned. The mills grow quieter, layoffs and cutbacks become more common, and the towns that once relied upon them find themselves navigating a new, uncertain landscape. It is in this environment, somewhere in the unremarkable lines of a financial statement, that Warren Buffett notices Berkshire Hathaway. To most, the company appears tired, its prospects fading. But to Buffett, the numbers tell a different story, a quiet story, perhaps, but not without promise. Berkshire's book valued the sum of its assets, from factory buildings to inventory remains solid, even as its stock price drifts lower, almost unnoticed. The gap between what the company is worth on paper and what the market says it is worth becomes a source of gentle fascination. Buffett is not yet a legend. He is methodical, working from a small office, surrounded by stacks of annual reports, and the quiet hum of adding machines. He is not interested in textile mills themselves, but in value, and in the peculiar opportunities that sometimes emerge from overlooked corners of the market. His interest in Berkshire Hathaway is not born of excitement, but of the same calm logic that has guided him since childhood. He begins to purchase shares, quietly, methodically, as the mills continue their slow, steady work. To the workers in Massachusetts, nothing appears to change. The looms turn, the dust swirls in the afternoon light, and paychecks are issued each Friday, but quietly, share by share, the ownership of the company begins to shift. In boardrooms, tension grows. Buffett's steady accumulation of stock does not go unnoticed by the old guard, who debate the intentions of this young, distant investor. Letters are exchanged, meetings are called. The air is thick with a kind of cautious uncertainty, not of revolution, but of change, whispered rather than shouted. By 1965, Warren Buffett becomes the majority shareholder in Berkshire Hathaway. He does not arrive with fanfare. There are no grand speeches or sudden dismissals. Instead, the company's leadership quietly transitions, the old names slipping gently into retirement or new roles. Buffett's approach remains steady, almost invisible. To the wider world, he brings no promise of revival for the mills, no illusions of recapturing a lost golden age. Instead, he brings a quiet realism, a recognition that the textile business, for all its dignity and history, cannot withstand the relentless logic of changing times. For a time, Buffett allows the mills to continue. He respects the rhythm of the workers' lives, the slow continuity of the company's obligations. He does not rush to shut the doors. Instead, he watches, calculates, and allows the remaining value to be extracted carefully, without panic or cruelty. He looks, always, for new opportunities, new investments, new possibilities, using the company's cash to purchase other, more promising businesses. This is the beginning of Berkshire Hathaway's long, quiet transformation. In the mills, life continues much as before at first. There are still mornings marked by the turning of keys, the opening of doors, and the patient hum of machinery. But the change, though gentle, is irreversible. The story of Berkshire Hathaway, once confined to the slow, repetitive motion of looms and spindles, has begun to move outward gently, inexorably toward new industries, new investments, and a future built not on cotton, but on the disciplined art of capital allocation. And all the while, in the background of this new chapter, another mind is quietly at work, mind shaped by California's sunshine, by legal practice, and by a restless curiosity that will soon find its place beside Buffett's own. But for now, the story is one of transition, of the soft, persistent decline of a way of life, and the calm, careful entrance of a new kind of stewardship. The mills grow quieter, the towns adapt, and the slow accumulation of days of routines and choices, of habit and hope continues. It is a gentle, nearly imperceptible turning, the beginning of a transformation that, in time, will change not just Berkshire Hathaway, but the entire landscape of American business. The mills, once vibrant with industry, are now quieter than before. Each day begins, as it always has, with the morning sun rising over the brick buildings and the gentle shuffle of workers' feet across the yard. The rhythm remains, but it is softer, a little less certain, a little more subdued. Those who remain on the factory floor notice the subtle changes. Machines idle for longer, orders grow smaller, and the familiar faces in the lunchroom dwindle as each year passes. Warren Buffett, the new steward of Berkshire Hathaway, is often far from these daily routines. His office in Omaha is orderly and spare, the aircom filled with the rustle of papers and the quiet click of a calculator. He is not a textile man by trade or by heart. He is a man who listens to numbers, who moves through days with a steady, patient logic, and who finds comfort in the slow, methodical accumulation of knowledge. Buffett's presence is not dramatic. There are no sweeping announcements, no urgent changes to the rhythms of the workers' lives. Instead, there is a kind of watchfulness, careful respect for the legacy of the mills, even as their decline continues. He attends board meetings, reviews operations, and issues instructions, but he does not force the pace of change. He allows the mills to continue, honoring the dignity of their labor and the memory of their past. Yet, as the months unfold, Buffett's influence becomes quietly apparent. He scrutinizes every expense, weighing each decision with the patient logic that defines his character. He understands that the mills cannot be saved through cost-cutting or modernization, not through hope or nostalgia. He sees, as few others do, the reality beneath the surface, that the era of New England textiles has quietly ended. The people of the towns sense it too. Job postings dwindle. The laughter in the canteen is softer. Older workers retire, younger ones leave for other industries, some with relief, others with regret. The factories themselves, once the heart of their communities, now feel like relics, a gentle echo of an America that is slowly, quietly passing away. But Buffett's vision is not bounded by the walls of the old mills. He understands the value locked within the company, not as spindles and looms, but as capital that can be redirected. As the textile business winds down, he begins to use Berkshire Hathaway's resources for something new, the patient acquisition of other companies, chosen not for their glamour, but for their reliability and long-term promise. In these early years, Buffett's choices are methodical and cautious. He is not interested in fleeting trends or rapid expansion. He invests in businesses with strong fundamentals, consistent cash flows, and honest managers. The first such acquisition comes quietly in 1967, National Indemnity, a small insurance company. On the surface, it is an ordinary purchase, but for Berkshire Hathaway and for Buffett it marks the true beginning of a new chapter. The insurance business, unlike textiles, is built on patience and prudence. Premiums come in today, but claims may not be paid for years, sometimes decades. This creates something Buffett will come to prize above all else: float capital that can be invested while waiting for eventual liabilities to be paid. The flow of premiums, and the time between collecting them and paying out claims, gives Berkshire Hathaway an ever-growing reservoir of funds to invest. Each step forward is careful, almost meditative. Buffett reads insurance policies, meets quietly with managers, and observes the business as it is, never rushing, never forcing. His letters to shareholders, even in these early days, are gentle, explanatory, and laced with a quiet sense of responsibility. He makes it clear: Berkshire Hathaway will not be guided by fashion or excitement, but by the slow, steady logic of value. Meanwhile, back in the mill towns, the world is slowly rearranging itself. Some factories close entirely, their doors locked, their windows gathering dust. Others reduce shifts, sharing out the remaining work as best they can. Communities adapt, gently but inevitably, as the reliable beat of the textile industry fades into memory. Shops close, children leave, the streets grow a little quieter with each passing year. In Omaha, Buffett's routine rarely wavers. He arrives early to the office, reads for hours, and spends his afternoons in quiet thought. He rarely travels, preferring the steady comfort of familiar surroundings and the company of close colleagues. Yet, through correspondence and rare but meaningful meetings, another voice begins to shape the destiny of Berkshire Hathaway, a voice that belongs to Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger is at this time a respected attorney and investor in Los Angeles. He and Buffett know each other through family connections and a shared fascination with the world of finance. Their conversations, often long and contemplative, reveal a subtle harmony of temperament and values. Both men are skeptical of speculation. Both are patient, curious, and respectful of the slow logic of compounding. Yet Munger brings something new, a wider, more ambitious vision of what Berkshire Hathaway could become. It is not a sudden or dramatic partnership. The years pass quietly, as letters are exchanged and occasional meetings are held in modest offices and plain conference rooms. Munger's counsel is gentle but firm. Rather than merely seeking cigar butt investments companies bought at a discount, held briefly and sold for a modest gain, Berkshire should seek businesses with enduring value, led by people of rare character. Buffett listens, thinks, and slowly adapts. He does not abandon his principles, but he allows them to grow, taking on Munger's broader, more holistic approach to value. The transformation is not abrupt. It is gradual, unfolding over seasons and years. As the 1970s begin, Berkshire Hathaway is a company in quiet transition. The textile mills, though still present, are no longer the center of gravity. Insurance becomes the core, and with it, a new set of routines: underwriting, investing, managing risk with the same patient discipline that once guided the looms. Buffett and Munger, though different in background and temperament, begin to work more closely, their partnership growing not from excitement or urgency, but from mutual respect and the comfort of shared principles. For the employees in Massachusetts, the change is almost imperceptible. Payroll is met, obligations honored, and life continues, if more quietly than before. The towns endure, shaped now as much by memory as by routine. For Buffett and Munger, Berkshire Hathaway is becoming something new, not a relic of a fading industry, but a vessel for careful, disciplined investment, steered by two men whose partnership is rooted in patience, skepticism, and a gentle optimism about the future. And so, through days and years and gentle turns, the old world of textiles fades, while a new world built on the quiet discipline of capital allocation begins to take shape. It is not a story of sudden triumph, but of patient transition, of routines reimagined, and of the slow, almost invisible accumulation of strength. As this chapter draws to a close, the sounds of the mill are but a distant echo, replaced by the calm order of insurance offices, the shuffle of papers, and the quiet calculations of men who understand, above all, the value of waiting. The 1970s settle over America with a feeling of cautious optimism, tinged with uncertainty. The textile mills of Berkshire Hathaway have mostly fallen silent, their grand, red brick buildings casting long, quiet shadows over the old mill towns. Inside a few of these structures, the last spools of cotton thread turn slowly, the machinery, maintained less for profit than for obligation, a gentle winding down, respectful of the past. In the office in Omaha, Warren Buffett rises early each morning. His daily routine is as predictable as the path of the sun across the Nebraska sky. Coffee, a stack of newspapers, annual reports from companies large and small, and a simple breakfast, sometimes a can of Coca-Cola and a few cookies. His tastes unfussy, his attention unbroken. He reviews company balance sheets the way others might read the morning weather, searching for subtle patterns and quiet opportunities. Buffett's world is one of patience. His staff is small, the phones ring quietly, and there are few visitors. Decisions are made not in a hurry, but through long, thoughtful consideration, sometimes discussed over leisurely lunches or in measured correspondence with trusted partners. The mood is not that of a modern financial powerhouse, but more like that of a careful family, office orderly, disciplined, quietly ambitious. It is during this period that Charlie Munger's voice becomes steadily more present in the day-to-day rhythm of Berkshire Hathaway. Munger, several years Buffett's senior, operates out of Los Angeles, where Buffett is all folksy, Midwestern calm. Munger brings the precise, logical clarity of a lawyer and the broad curiosity of a philosopher. He reads widely psychology, economics, history, always searching for connections and mental models that can explain why some businesses endure, while others quietly fade away. Their conversations are calm, reasoned, and always polite. Buffett listens as Munger urges a wider perspective. Forget buying fair businesses at wonderful prices, Munger says, his tone thoughtful and even. Let's look for wonderful businesses at fair prices. This shift, though subtle, is profound. It is not announced with speeches or fanfare. Rather, it emerges over years of careful thought, shaping Berkshire Hathaway's future with a quiet, persistent influence. The first steps are small. Buffett continues to buy insurance companies slowly, methodically, using their steady premiums as a foundation for further investments. He is drawn to companies with what he will later call moats, sustainable competitive advantages that allow them to earn good returns year after year. He studies not just the numbers, but the habits of the people who run these businesses, looking for honesty, reliability, and a love of craft. In the early 1970s, Berkshire Hathaway makes another quiet but momentous move: the purchase of See's Candies, a beloved West Coast confectioner. The deal is not made on the basis of discounted assets or hidden value, but on the strength of the business itself. See's, with its unwavering customer loyalty and disciplined management, offers not only profit, but also a model for what Berkshire Hathaway can become. The company's success is built on small, repeatable pleasures, the comfort of a familiar treat, the satisfaction of quality, and the rhythm of holidays and celebrations. This aligns perfectly with Buffett and Munger's philosophy. Invest in companies whose products and routines become part of the fabric of daily life. The decision to buy See's is discussed and considered for months. Buffett and Munger pore over its records, visit factories, and sample the chocolates themselves, not in haste, but with the same care as all their decisions. In the end, they pay more than the company's book value, a gentle but important departure from Buffett's earlier habits. This is Munger's influence, a quiet expansion of vision, rooted in experience and reinforced by reason as the years unfold. The list of investments grows, each chosen with patience and discipline. Berkshire Hathaway buys shares in newspapers like the Washington Post, drawn by the enduring power of reputation and the rhythm of daily readership. It invests in other insurance ventures, real estate, and eventually in consumer products companies. Each decision is measured, considered not only for potential profit, but for resilience, the ability to weather storms, to endure changing fashions, to maintain the rhythm of success. Buffett and Munger, though often separated by distance, communicate constantly. Their letters are filled with dry humor and gentle wisdom, discussing everything from stock prices to the lessons of ancient history. They are united by a simple belief that good businesses, run by good people, bought at sensible prices, will yield rewards not overnight, but through the slow, patient compounding of decades. Inside Berkshire Hathaway, the culture is shifting. Buffett sets the tone: modest, transparent, and fiercely focused on the long term. There are no elaborate offices, no lavish perks. Shareholder meetings are modest affairs, and annual reports are written in plain, direct language, with Buffett's gentle, self-effacing tone soothing even when the news is disappointing. For the former textile workers, life moves on. Some mills are sold, their machinery auctioned off, and buildings repurposed for small businesses or apartments. Others stand empty, monuments to a different era. But in Omaha and Los Angeles, a new routine is emerging, one of disciplined investment, careful stewardship, and quiet confidence in the power of time. Buffett and Munger's partnership deepens not through drama, but through the slow accumulation of trust. They challenge each other's assumptions, but never lose patience. Their differences of temperament, background, even geography become strengths, guiding Berkshire Hathaway toward a philosophy that is as calming as it is effective. Be patient, be rational, trust in the power of simple, honest businesses. To endure by the end of the decade, Berkshire Hathaway is no longer a textile company in any meaningful sense. Its roots remain honored in name and memory, but its future is written in the steady lines of insurance policies, the quiet stacks of See's candies, and the loyal subscribers of local newspapers. Buffett and Munger, working quietly behind the scenes, have turned a fading relic into the first sturdy foundation of an empire, one built not on risk or speculation, but on the gentle compounding of good sense and daily discipline. The company's Transformation is not yet complete. Indeed, it has only just begun. But the seeds are planted, the habits established, and the rhythm set. It is a world of gentle persistence, of small, wise choices made day after day, year after year, story written not in headlines, but in the slow, patient unfolding of time. As the 1970s draw to a close, the American economy feels the slow, uneven tremors of change. Stagflation settles over the land-rare combination of economic stagnation and inflation, unfamiliar to many and unsettling to most. Gas lines snake through city streets, the price of groceries rises by the week, and uncertainty becomes the new daily companion for businesses large and small. Yet inside the modest offices of Berkshire Hathaway, the rhythm remains steady and calm. Warren Buffett, ever early to rise, reads his mountain of newspapers and reports. The world outside may be noisy, but within these quiet walls, decisions are shaped by patience, reflection, and the long view. Charlie Munger, meanwhile, splits his time between law, investments, and his increasing role as Buffett's closest confidant. Their friendship deepens, not through grand gestures, but through a gentle, ongoing exchange of ideas. Their letters are sometimes playful, sometimes philosophical, and always laced with respect and candor. Munger's influence is now woven into the very fabric of Berkshire's decision-making, urging Buffett to think beyond the numbers, to value quality as much as thrift in these years. Berkshire Hathaway's staff remains tiny by any corporate standard. There is no bustling headquarters, no vast team of analysts. Instead, the company is run by a handful of people, each trusted to act with autonomy and care. This simplicity is not a weakness, but a strength, a way to keep decisions free from the distractions and bureaucracy that weigh down larger enterprises. During the late 1970s and into the 1980s, Berkshire's insurance business quietly expands. Each new acquisition is considered carefully. Companies like Geico, a well-known auto insurer, come under Buffett's watchful eye. Insurance is not glamorous work, but it is steady, and it gives Berkshire Hathaway something invaluable: float. The premiums collected from policyholders become a growing pool of capital, waiting to be invested. Buffett and Munger treat this float as a precious resource, never to be wasted, always invested with an eye toward the distant horizon. It is in these years that the compounding effect, so often praised by Buffett, becomes not just a theory but a daily reality. Each dollar earned is reinvested. Each good decision builds on the one before it. Growth is slow but persistent, a quiet accumulation that, over time, begins to draw the attention of investors and business owners alike. Berkshire Hathaway's annual reports become required reading for the thoughtful investor. Written in Buffett's plain, approachable style, they gently demystify the world of business and finance. He explains not just what the company has done, but why a rare transparency in a world more often governed by jargon and opacity. Readers are comforted by his steady voice, his willingness to admit mistakes, and his insistence that success is built on the simple virtues of honesty, patience, and restraint. Outside the walls of Berkshire, the business world is shifting. Mergers and acquisitions fill the headlines. Leveraged buyouts and junk bonds come to define the era. Many companies chase rapid growth, taking on risk in pursuit of quick gains. But Berkshire Hathaway remains serenely apart from the noise, guided by its own quieter compass. Buffett and Munger are cautious with debt, wary of the temptations of leverage. They prefer to grow by earning and saving, not by borrowing and betting. Their investments are chosen for durability, for management quality, and for products or services that will still matter decades into the future. The partnership's approach to acquisitions is unusual in its gentleness. When Berkshire buys a business, it rarely replaces existing management. Instead, Buffett and Munger look for owners who wish to stay on, who love their businesses and care for their people. They offer autonomy, respect, and the promise that Berkshire will not meddle with what works. Many owners, weary of the traditional corporate buyout, are drawn to this philosophy, and Berkshire's reputation for fairness spreads quietly, by word of mouth. In the 1980s, Berkshire's investments broaden. The company buys into Nebraska, Furniture Marta, legendary retail store in Omaha, founded and run by Rose Blumkin, a woman as shrewd and determined as Buffett himself. He admires her relentless work ethic and her devotion to her customers. The acquisition, like so many at Berkshire, is sealed not just by contracts but by trust, by a handshake and a meeting of minds. Other investments follow. Buffett puts money into the Washington Post Company, building a relationship with publisher Katharine Graham that is both personal and professional. He invests in Capital Cities, ABC, in Scott Fetzer, a manufacturing group, and in the first hints of a major future. Relationship, each step is careful, considered, and always patient. As Berkshire's influence grows, so does its reputation for stability. The stock price rises quietly, often in defiance of broader market swings. Shareholders come to see Berkshire, not as a source of quick profits, but as a kind of financial home or place where money is tended carefully, protected from the storms of fashion and speculation. Within the company, the pace remains calm. Buffett spends long hours reading, thinking, and writing. He avoids unnecessary meetings, preferring clear, concise communication and the delegation of authority. Employees describe him as approachable, unpretentious, and deeply committed to doing what is right. Munger's role becomes formalized. He is named vice chairman in 1978, a title that reflects not just his importance, but the gentle, shared leadership that now defines Berkshire's culture. He is known for his clarity, his wit, and his insistence on learning from mistakes, not just his own, but those of others. The rhythm of daily life at Berkshire Hathaway is slow, deliberate, and deeply comforting. There is little urgency, few surprises. Decisions are made only after thoughtful debate and reflection, often with reference to history, psychology, and the timeless lessons of human nature. Buffett and Munger are united by a quiet humility, a sense that success is not a destination but a journey won, measured not in years but in decades. For shareholders, employees, and business partners, this steady approach becomes a source of security in an unpredictable world. Berkshire's story is now one of compounding of small gains, repeated patiently, growing into something strong and enduring. The textile mills are mostly gone, but their legacy of careful, diligent work endures in the company's culture, gently guiding each new decision. By the end of the 1980s, Berkshire Hathaway has become a quiet giant. Its roots are still in Omaha and in the rhythms of Midwestern life, but its reach now spans industries and continents. The foundation is set, the habits established, the partnership between Buffett and Munger matured and proven. They have built not just a company, but a way of thinking, a culture of patience, discipline, and trust that will sustain Berkshire Hathaway through whatever changes the future may bring. As the 1980s come to a close, the American business landscape is marked by the bold ambitions and frequent turbulence of Wall Street. The era is thick with talk of takeovers, leveraged buyouts, and fortunes made and lost almost overnight. Yet, in Omaha, the daily routine at Berkshire Hathaway flows onward, with its own gentle tempo, untouched by the clamor and drama that characterizes so much of the financial world. Warren Buffett's mornings remain unchanged. He still arrives early, newspaper in hand, a stack of annual reports waiting for his thoughtful attention. His office, unpretentious and tidy, is filled not with the trappings of power, but with the quiet energy of concentration. The sounds here are muted. The gentle turning of pages, the click of a pen, the hum of reflection. Buffett's staff is small, his expectations clear, and his trust in those around him is deep and quietly expressed by now. Charlie Munger is a familiar presence, not only in formal meetings, but in the daily flow of decisions, letters, and phone calls. His influence shapes not only what Berkshire buys, but how the company thinks about business itself. Munger is fond of quoting ancient philosophers, weaving lessons from psychology and history into the fabric of Berkshire's strategy. He and Buffett speak often, sometimes debating with dry wit, sometimes simply sharing the satisfaction of another quiet victory, well-chosen acquisition. A shareholder letter written with clarity and candor. The late 1980s bring new opportunities, and Buffett approaches each one with characteristic patience. He looks for companies that others overlook, favoring businesses with long histories, stable earnings, and leaders he can trust. The acquisition of Nebraska Furniture Mart remains a source of pride, not just for its profits, but for the character of Rose Blunkin and her family, whose relentless honesty and discipline echo the values Buffett's prizes. Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio begins to broaden. The company increases its holdings in insurance, expands into utilities, and, in a move that will later become legendary, invests heavily in Coca-Cola. Buffett is drawn not to the glamour of the brand, but to its simplicity and its global reach. Of business built on habits, repetition, and the comfort of a familiar product. The decision is not made in haste. Buffett and Munger study the company's history, visit its facilities, and talk with its managers. They look for evidence of durability. Can this company continue to thrive year after year, regardless of economic fashion? With Coca-Cola, they see a motor competitive advantage so wide and enduring that even the strongest competitors cannot breach it in these years. Berkshire Hathaway's reputation grows quietly at first, then more widely. Investors who have held their shares for a decade or more notice a steady, patient increase in value. There are no sudden leaps, no dazzling promises, only the gentle power of compounding year after year. The annual shareholder meetings in Omaha become small pilgrimages for those who value clarity, honesty, and a certain Midwestern wisdom. Attendees gather not for spectacle, but for the chance to listen to Buffett and Munger explain, in plain language, how and why Berkshire does what it does. For Buffett and Munger, the meetings are an extension of their daily work, a chance to share their thinking, answer questions, and gently remind everyone that investing is not a sprint, but a marathon. They encourage patience, discipline, and self-restraint, speaking as much about what they have chosen not to do as about what they have done. They emphasize the importance of character, not just skill, in business. Again and again, they return to the comforting themes that have guided them since the beginning: simplicity, trust, and the quiet power of time within Berkshire Hathaway itself. Life remains unhurried. The small staff is loyal, often working in the company for decades. Decisions are made thoughtfully, sometimes over weeks or months, and there is little hierarchy or bureaucracy. Buffett sets the tone by example, maintaining a modest salary and treating his colleagues with respect and affection. He is known for his willingness to listen, to admit mistakes, and to share credit generously. The culture at Berkshire Hathaway becomes quietly famous. Other companies, especially those acquired by Berkshire, are allowed to operate much as they always have. There are no waves of layoffs, no intrusive reorganizations. Buffett and Munger trust the people who run these businesses, intervening only when absolutely necessary. They believe that the best results come from owners and managers who love their work, who know their customers and employees by name, and who are free to make decisions without interference from distant headquarters. This autonomy becomes one of Berkshire's most attractive qualities. Business owners across the country begin to see Berkshire Hathaway not just as a source of capital, but as a refuge place, where they can sell their life's work without fear of having it dismantled or changed beyond recognition. Buffett and Munger build relationships based on trust and shared values, often sealing deals with a simple handshake or a brief letter of understanding. As the 1990s begin, the world outside is changing. The first hints of the digital revolution can be felt, though their full impact is not yet clear. Markets are volatile, and new industries are emerging at a pace that makes some investors nervous and others reckless. Yet, in Omaha, the pace remains as gentle as ever. Buffett reads, Munger reflects, and together they steer Berkshire Hathaway with a steady hand. The company's financial strength grows quietly. Insurance float increases year by year, providing a larger pool of capital to invest. The stock price rises, not in leaps, but with the slow assurance of a river carving its path through the landscape. Shareholders begin to view their investment as something to be kept for a lifetime, a form of stewardship rather than speculation. For Buffett and Munger, each day is an opportunity to reinforce the habits that have brought them this far. They read, they think, they learn from the past, and they trust in the compounding power of time. There are no shortcuts, no secret, just the enduring, daily practice of patience and discipline. Berkshire Hathaway, once a struggling textile mill, is now a model of what a company can become when guided by clear principles, steady hands, and a respect for the routines that quietly shape our lives. Its story continues to unfold, not in bursts of excitement, but in the slow, measured rhythm of thoughtful stewardship. The 1990s begin with a gentle sense of transition. In Omaha, the seasons cycle with familiar patience. Winter's hush, the gradual brightening of spring, the easy warmth of summer, and the quiet gold of autumn. For Warren Buffett, each season brings a different light to his daily walk to the office, but little changes in the inner rhythms that have guided him for decades. His mornings begin, as always, with reading and reflection. Inside Berkshire Hathaway, the mood is quietly optimistic. The company's annual meetings grow larger, drawing more shareholders and admirers to Omaha, but the essence remains unchanged. Attendees gather in plain conference rooms, their folding chairs lined up in neat rows, the air tinged with the scent of coffee and quiet anticipation. Buffett and Charlie Munger, now visibly older but still sharp and witty, answer questions. For hours, their voices calm and steady. The atmosphere is more like a gathering of old friends than a corporate summit. Throughout the early 1990s, Berkshire Hathaway continues to invest carefully and deliberately. Each new opportunity is evaluated not for its novelty or excitement, but for its durability and character. Buffett's gaze lingers over businesses that others might overlook: insurance companies, manufacturers, retailers, and consumer brands that have withstood the test of time. The investment in Coca-Cola, made just a few years earlier, becomes a defining example of Berkshire's approach. It is not simply a stock, but a company whose brand is woven into daily life around the world, a habit for millions. Buffett's faith in Coca-Cola is not based on quarterly results or fleeting trends, but on his belief in its enduring value. Belief that is quietly, gradually rewarded as the years pass. Charlie Munger's influence is by now unmistakable. He and Buffett speak frequently, sometimes several times a day, exchanging ideas, observations, and gentle challenges. Munger's insistence on seeking quality, not just bargains, has reshaped the core of Berkshire's investment philosophy. He encourages Buffett to think in terms of mental models, to draw on lessons from psychology, history, and other disciplines, always searching for a broader, deeper understanding of business and human nature. In the 1990s, Berkshire's reputation grows far beyond Omaha. The company's plain-spoken annual reports and long-term perspective attract not only investors but also students, journalists, and even rival CEOs. Buffett and Munger become sought after for their opinions, not because they promise secrets or shortcuts, but because they offer clarity, humility, and consistency in a world that seems increasingly distracted by the next big thing. With the economy booming and the stock market reaching new highs, the culture of risk-taking returns to Wall Street. High-flying technology companies, dot-com startups, and ambitious venture capitalists capture headlines. In contrast, Berkshire Hathaway is almost out of step with the times. Buffett and Munger are uninterested in the speculative frenzy. Continue to invest in companies they can understand, whose managers they can trust, whose products or services fill real needs. This discipline does not go unnoticed. As other companies leap into new ventures, Berkshire's shareholders watch with quiet pride as their company avoids the excesses of the moment. The annual meetings in Omaha become larger each year, yet they retain a spirit of patience and perspective. Buffett, with his gentle humor, reminds everyone that their greatest asset is not information or technology, but temperament, the ability to remain calm, rational, and focused on the long term. Berkshire's acquisition of new businesses follows the same familiar pattern. The process is never hurried. Owners are courted with respect. Negotiations are carried out without threats or bluster, usually in quiet offices or over the phone. Many of the companies that join Berkshire do so because they wish to preserve their culture and independence. Buffett and Munger promise only stability and autonomy, and their word is honored. During these years, Berkshire's investments diversify further. The company buys more insurance firms, deepens its stake in media, and acquires interests in manufacturing, utilities, and retail. Each acquisition is folded gently into the larger whole, allowed to flourish without interference. The central office remains lean, with only a handful of staff coordinating the flow of information and capital. Buffett's approach to leadership is one of light touch and deep trust. He sends occasional memos, full of wisdom and humor, but rarely issues direct orders. He prefers to delegate, to empower others, and to reward honesty and initiative. This style, unusual in the world of corporate America, fosters loyalty and attracts talented managers who value independence. Charlie Munger, though less visible to the public, is equally central to Berkshire's evolution. He encourages Buffett to read more widely, to consider unfamiliar perspectives, and to remain humble in the face of uncertainty. Together, they reflect on their mistakes as much as their successes, always searching for the lessons that will carry them through the next cycle. The partnership between Buffett and Munger is by now a living example of Berkshire's ethos. It is rooted in mutual respect, quiet confidence, and the daily practice of patient thought. Theirs is not a story of sudden triumphs or dramatic transformations, but of small, wise decisions repeated over many years. By the late 1990s, Berkshire Hathaway has become one of the most admired companies in the world, not because of spectacle or publicity, but because of its steady, unbroken record of integrity and compounding. For Buffett and Munger, there is satisfaction in this, but little sense of arrival. Each day remains a new opportunity for careful thought, for learning, and for the slow, gentle work of building something that will last. The world outside continues. Shift technology accelerates. Markets become ever more complex, but within Berkshire, the old routines endure. The company is now a beacon for those who seek comfort in stability, in principle, and in the steady passage of time. As the century draws to a close, America stands on the threshold of the digital age. New technologies arrive almost overnight. The language of business and daily life fills with unfamiliar words. Internet, e-commerce, bandwidth, startup. Companies are born in dorm rooms and in garages, then celebrated on the covers of magazines before ever earning $1 of profit. The dot-com era begins, humming with the energy of possibility and the thrill of speculation. For Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, the world outside their quiet offices seems to speed up. The Nasdaq index surges, and conversations at dinner tables and in taxis turn to the latest tech stocks and overnight millionaires. Friends and acquaintances, once cautious investors, now wonder if perhaps the rules have changed, if profits and cash flow matter less than clicks and page views. Yet, within Berkshire Hathaway, the rhythm remains the same. Each morning, Warren Buffett settles in with his papers and his annual reports, pen in hand, his thoughts drifting not to the future's wild promises, but to the solid, familiar landscape of cash flow statements and balance sheets. He reviews letters from managers, reads the writings of past thinkers, and reflects on businesses with Modesto's rare companies that endure through habit, quality, and necessity. Charlie Munger continues to offer gentle counsel, his thoughts shaped by a lifetime of broad reading and deep curiosity. He urges Buffett to remain wary of the crowd, to think independently, and to remember that true value is never found in fashion, but in function. They talk often about psychology and human behavior, about the patterns that repeat throughout history whenever crowds become convinced that this time is different. As the world rushes into dot-com investments, Buffett and Munger calmly resist the pressure to join in. They speak openly at the Berkshire annual meetings, their words patient and soothing. Buffett explains, time and again, that he does not understand the business models of these new companies well enough to invest Berkshire's capital. He reminds shareholders that it is better to admit what you do not know than to risk money on speculation. Charlie Munger reinforces this with dry humor, his observations laced with wisdom and a gentle skepticism that reassures even the most restless listener. The annual meetings themselves have grown into something more than a business event. Visitors travel from across the country and the world, filling Omaha's hotels and restaurants, all for a chance to hear Buffett and Munger answer questions for hours on end. The meetings are described as Woodstock for capitalists, but they are marked by a sense of calm, order, and community. There is little pretense or showmanship. Instead, the air is filled with quiet anticipation, polite laughter, and the simple joy of shared understanding. In the late 1990s, as stock prices soar to unprecedented heights, Berkshire's own share price lags behind. Some critics question whether Buffett and Munger have lost their touch. Others wonder if their approach is simply out of date in a world remade by technology. Yet, for Buffett and Munger, these doubts are little more than passing clouds. Their confidence is not born of stubbornness, but of deep conviction in the power of patience and the lessons of history. Inside Berkshire's offices, daily routines do not change. The staff remains small, the atmosphere collegial. Managers of Berkshire's businesses continue to run their operations with autonomy and care. Quarterly results are reviewed, but without the frantic urgency that marks so many public companies. Buffett and Munger focus on the horizon, not the headlines, trusting in the slow, compounding effect of time. As the dot-com bubble swells, Buffett continues to write his annual letters, gently cautioning readers against the dangers of speculation. He emphasizes the importance of value of investing only in companies whose prospects can be reasonably understood, and whose future earnings justify their price. He admits that there are things he does not know, and that it is not shameful to wait for clear opportunities rather than chase what is popular. This humility, rare among leaders, is deeply comforting to Berkshire's shareholders. Charlie Munger's remarks are equally measured. He speaks of the madness of crowds, the ways in which envy and fear can drive people to make unwise decisions. He points out that periods of extreme optimism are often followed by sobering corrections. His words, never harsh, encourage listeners to seek wisdom in patience and to remain true to their principles, even when the world seems to disagree. By the year 2000, the dot-com bubble reaches its peak. The excitement is palpable, but so too is the growing sense of unreality. Companies with no profits, and sometimes not even a viable business model, are valued at billions of dollars. Yet, in Omaha, Buffett and Munger remain unmoved. Berkshire's investments remain focused on insurance, manufacturing, consumer goods, and other businesses that touch everyday life. When the bubble bursts, as bubbles always do, the shock is profound. Stock prices plummet, fortunes evaporate, and the promise of endless growth gives way to caution. Many who had once questioned Buffett's discipline now look to Berkshire Hathaway with renewed respect. The company's steady, measured approach has weathered the storm, and its shareholders find themselves in a position of strength. The early 2000s bring new challenges and new opportunities. Buffett and Munger do not gloat or celebrate the failure of others. Instead, they reflect quietly on what has passed, reminding shareholders and managers alike that patience, discipline, and honesty are not only good principles, but the foundation of lasting success. Berkshire Hathaway's culture, tested by the frenzy of the dot-com era, emerges stronger than ever. The company is now widely recognized not just for its financial results, but for its integrity, its transparency, and its calm, reassuring leadership. Buffett and Munger remain a team, their partnership defined by mutual respect and a daily routine that values reflection over reaction. Within Berkshire's family of businesses, life carries on. Factories hum with activity, insurance offices process claims, retailers greet customers. The managers of these businesses, entrusted with autonomy and responsibility, feel secure in the knowledge that their work is valued for its consistency and quality, not just its immediate results. The story of Berkshire Hathaway in these years is not one of dramatic transformation, but of quiet perseverance. Through cycles of boom and bust, through fashions and fads, the company holds to its core values. It is a story written not in sudden leaps, but in the gentle accumulation of good decisions made patiently, day by day, year by year. With the burst of the dot-com bubble, the new century dawns in a quieter, more cautious mood. The headlines that once trumpeted new fortunes now speak of losses, layoffs, and the sobering return to fundamentals. For many investors, this is a time of reckoning, a moment to reconsider the habits and principles that guide their decisions. In Omaha, however, the change in mood is almost imperceptible. Inside the Berkshire Hathaway offices, the days unfold with their familiar rhythm. Warren Buffett still arrives early, moving through the quiet corridors with the easy confidence of a man at home in his work. His desk, as much as it always has been, stacks of reading material, a few simple possessions, and the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminating the day's tasks. The world outside may shift, but the heart of Berkshire Hathaway beats with the same patient, careful pace. Charlie Munger remains the ever-present partner, a sounding board for ideas and a source of philosophical perspective. Their conversations, still frequent and lively, often begin with business, but drift easily to questions of psychology, history, and the deeper meaning of success. There is a sense, even as the years pass, that each day is a new opportunity to learn, not to chase novelty, but to deepen understanding. Throughout the early 2000s, Berkshire Hathaway continues to grow not through sudden leaps, but through steady, deliberate expansion. The company acquires new businesses, each carefully chosen for its character and resilience. Among them are utilities and energy companies, manufacturers of everyday goods, and additional insurance firms. Each acquisition is treated with the same respect. Managers are trusted, cultures are preserved, and the essence of the business is left intact. Buffett's annual letters to shareholders are now widely read, not just by investors, but by business students and journalists the world over. He writes with the same clarity and humility as ever, explaining his reasoning in plain, gentle language. He discusses both successes and mistakes, teaching by example and inviting his readers to share in the lessons learned. The tone is never boastful. Instead, there is a sense of companionship, of a steady hand guiding others through uncertain waters. The shareholder meetings in Omaha continue to grow. What began as small, quiet gatherings now fill convention centers and overflow into the city itself. Attendees come for more than investment advice. They come for reassurance, for a sense of belonging to something stable and trustworthy. Buffett and Munger answer questions with humor and patience, repeating the gentle themes that have become the company's hallmark. Think long-term. Avoid unnecessary risk. Trust in the power of compounding and the wisdom of humility. Berkshire Hathaway's culture is by now firmly established. Employees at headquarters work in a calm, focused environment. The daily routines are unhurried, the structure flat. There is no sense of urgency, no pressure to chase trends or match the market's every move. The same is true throughout Berkshire's family of companies. Each operates in its own way, guided by local traditions and the values of its managers. There are few memos from Omaha, fewer directives. Instead, there is trust, and with it, a sense of comfort and pride. The financial results reflect this steady discipline. Year after year, Berkshire produces earnings and growth that, while never the fastest, are among the most reliable. The company's balance sheet remains strong, its reserves ample, and its liabilities modest. Buffett and Munger refuse to use excessive debt, preferring the peace of mind that comes from living within one's means. For shareholders, the reward is not just financial, but emotional, a feeling of safety and belonging in an unpredictable world. As the decade progresses, new challenges emerge. The world becomes more interconnected. Technology continues to change how business is done, and the economic winds shift unpredictably. Yet Buffett and Munger remain true to their principles. When they do not understand a business or a trend, they simply watch and wait. They are content to let others chase the latest fashion, preferring to invest only where they see enduring value. Berkshire's reputation as a buyer of choice continues to spread. More business owners seek out Buffett, hoping to find a steward. For their life's work, the process of acquisition is always calm and respectful, often decided over a single meeting or a short exchange of letters. The word family is used not as a slogan but as a lived reality. New subsidiaries join Berkshire's ranks, bringing their own stories and rhythms, adding to the quiet strength of the whole dot through the early and middle years of the decade. The United States experiences periods of both prosperity and anxiety. There are times of plenty when optimism returns, and times of caution when uncertainty prevails. For Berkshire Hathaway, the course remains unchanged. Investments are made carefully, reserves are built, and risks are measured not by excitement or potential reward, but by the likelihood of permanent loss. As the decade nears its end, distant signals of trouble begin to sound in the world of finance. Housing prices rise quickly, lending standards slip, and new financial products promise ever greater returns. Buffett and Munger watch with quiet skepticism, noting the echoes of earlier booms and busts. They warn, gently, that leverage is dangerous, that complexity often hides risk, and that patience remains the safest path. For those inside Berkshire Hathaway, daily life carries on much as it always has. The staff at headquarters grows only slightly. Meetings are still rare and brief. The focus is on reading, thinking, and making careful decisions. There is time for conversation, for laughter, and for reflection. Shareholders continue to gather. Each spring, their numbers growing, but their expectations unchanged. They are there for reassurance, for the comfort of familiar wisdom, and for the quiet satisfaction of belonging to something that endures by the eve of the financial crisis. Berkshire Hathaway stands as a model of quiet resilience. Its businesses are healthy, its managers confident, and its shareholders at ease. The world outside grows restless once more, but within Berkshire, the gentle routines persist. The decade closes as it began, with a sense of calm amid uncertainty. Buffett and Munger, older now but undiminished in spirit, continue to lead by example. Their message is unchanged, their habits as steady as ever. It is a world built on trust, discipline, and the enduring power of patience, a world where comfort is found not in excitement, but in the daily practice of good sense and quiet stewardship. In the summer of 2007, the mood in the world of finance begins to shift. For years, the signs of trouble have gathered: quietly rising home prices, relaxed lending standards, and financial products whose risks seem almost invisible to those who buy and sell them. Yet, for most, the good times still seem destined to last. Stock markets are high, and the sense of security feels almost unshakable. Inside Berkshire Hathaway, there is no sense of urgency. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger continue their routines, reading, reflecting, and discussing the subtle signals of risk that ripple through the economy. Their conversations are patient, filled with reminders of history and the cycles that have repeated again and again. Both men remain wary of leverage and complexity, content to leave the fashionable trades to others. As 2007 turns to 2008, the storm that had been brewing breaks across the world's financial centers. News spreads of failing banks, frozen credit, markets, and businesses caught off guard by the sudden loss of confidence. There are headlines each day of panic and collapse. Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, and others whose names had once been synonymous with security. The world grows restless and anxious. In Omaha, the days are unchanged in their outward appearance. Buffett arrives at his office early. The streets are quiet, the city calm. The staff at Berkshire Hathaway go about their work, as always, aware of the news but comforted by the company's strong balance sheet and prudent habits. There are no frantic meetings, no waves of layoffs, no signs of distress. The calm at Berkshire stands in contrast to the chaos that fills the news. For shareholders, the annual meeting that spring feels different. The hall is filled with more questions, more concern. Some ask if this is the end of an era, if the world has changed so much that even Berkshire Hathaway cannot escape the consequences. Buffett and Munger, facing the crowd from the stage, are gentle and steady in their answers. They acknowledge the seriousness of the crisis, but explain with calm reassurance that Berkshire's conservatism and patience are their best protection. Buffett speaks of staying in the game, of never risking what you cannot afford to lose, and of the importance of cash and liquidity in times of turmoil. He points out that, while others scramble to raise funds or sell assets at a loss, Berkshire remains able to act, to buy, to help. It is not bravado, but a gentle reminder that prudence in good times is the best safeguard against trouble in bad times. Throughout the crisis, Berkshire Hathaway does not retreat. Instead, it moves carefully and deliberately, seeking out opportunities where others see only risk. Buffett invests in companies at the center of the storm: Goldman Sachs, General Electric, and others in need of both capital and the quiet vote of confidence that Berkshire's involvement provides. The terms are cautious, always with protections in place, but the message is one of steady support. Berkshire's reputation for reliability becomes a beacon in the uncertainty. The managers of Berkshire's many businesses continue their work. Some see a slowdown, others are affected less directly, but all operate with the same autonomy and focus as before. There are no rash changes, no panic. Communication from Omaha is steady and measured. Buffett and Munger check in, offer encouragement, and trust in the skills of those they have chosen. The rhythm of daily life, though quieter in some places, is not disrupted. As the worst of the crisis passes, Berkshire Hathaway emerges, not unscathed, but strong. The company has suffered along with the world. Its stock price has fallen, and some businesses have faced hard times. Yet its core remains healthy, its culture intact. Shareholders, many of whom have now weathered more than one cycle, find comfort in the lessons that have guided them all along. Buffett's annual letter after the crisis is filled with candor. He admits mistakes, describes missed opportunities, and discusses the lessons learned. There is no attempt to disguise the pain of the downturn. Yet, woven throughout is a sense of perspective, the recognition that setbacks are a part of life, and that those who endure do so not through brilliance, but through discipline, humility, and the refusal to be swept away by the mood of the crowd. Charlie Munger, reflecting on the experience, emphasizes the dangers of unchecked optimism and the enduring value of skepticism. He speaks of the need to understand incentives, to watch for the subtle ways in which risk can hide, and to always leave a margin of safety. His words, as ever, are calm and clear, a gentle guide through the uncertainties of business and life. By 2010, the financial system is healing, and Berkshire Hathaway is once again focused on the future. The crisis has been a test, one that has reinforced the habits and routines that have defined the company for generations. The importance of cash, the wisdom of patience, the value of trustworthy partners, these are not new ideas, but the daily practices that once again have proven their worth. That the world outside moves on, forever altered by the events of those years. But within Berkshire, the days return to their gentle, familiar pattern. The staff is steady, the managers confident, and the partnership between Buffett and Munger is stronger than ever. Their message is unchanged: stay humble, stay disciplined, and trust in the slow power of compounding. The story of Berkshire Hathaway through the financial crisis is not one of drama, but of quiet resilience. It is a story of holding fast while others rush, of standing firm while others waver, and of finding comfort not in what changes, but in what endures. In the years after the financial crisis, a new sense of calm settles over the American economy. The wild swings of the markets give way to a period of recovery. For many, it is a time to rebuild what was lost and to reconsider what truly matters in business and in life. In Omaha, the steady heartbeat of Berkshire Hathaway continues almost unchanged, the routines of daily work untouched by the drama of recent years. Warren Buffett, now in his 80s, begins each day as he always has. The quiet of early morning is filled with the rustle of newspapers, the clatter of breakfast dishes, and the slow enjoyment of reading annual reports. His mind remains sharp, his interest in new businesses undiminished by age. He writes longhand, notes to colleagues, reflects on opportunities, and stays in regular contact with the managers of Berkshire's growing list of subsidiaries. Charlie Munger, also now well into his senior years, maintains a similar rhythm. He continues to read widely, drawing on fields as varied as biology, engineering, and literature to inform his decisions. The friendship and partnership between Buffett and Munger is now the stuff of legend, an example of mutual respect, open debate, and unwavering trust. They continue to challenge each other's ideas and share a gentle humor that makes their annual meetings a highlight for so many. During this period, Berkshire Hathaway continues to expand, but never at a hurried pace. The company makes several large acquisitions, most notably the purchase of Burlington Northern Santa Fe, one of the nation's largest railroads. The deal is negotiated with care and respect for all involved. Buffett sees in the railroad not only a business with strong cash flow and an essential role in American commerce, but also a kind of living metaphor for the Berkshire philosophy: progress built 1 mile at a time, through steady investment, reliability, and an acceptance of weathering the seasons. Other acquisitions follow, each chosen with the same patience and discipline. Berkshire invests in manufacturing, utilities, specialty retailers, and more insurance companies. The managers of these businesses join a family defined not by rigid rules, but by a culture of autonomy and trust. In headquarters, the number of employees remains astonishingly small for such a vast enterprise. Decision-making is decentralized. Communication is direct, often conducted by phone or handwritten letters rather than lengthy memos or grand meetings. Berkshire's annual meeting grows to legendary proportions. Each spring, thousands of shareholders descend on Omaha for what is now a days-long festival. They tour Berkshire-owned businesses, enjoy casual meals, and line up for hours just to ask questions of Buffett and Munger. The answers, delivered with the same calm and humor as always, reflect the duo's deep understanding of both human nature and business. Their advice is simple but profound. Avoid envy, be careful with debt, focus on the long term, and always act with integrity. The world around Berkshire Hathaway is changing rapidly. Technology companies become the new giants of industry, and many traditional businesses face new forms of competition. Buffett and Munger do not rush to join the digital gold rush. Instead, they continue to invest where they see enduring value, even if it means watching from the sidelines while others chase quick profits. They are willing to admit what they do not know and patient enough to wait for opportunities that fit their understanding. Shareholders take comfort in Berkshire's stability. The company's financial strength remains unmatched, its cash reserves are vast. Its investments are chosen for their quality and durability, and its culture is a refuge for those who value trust and discipline. The annual letters, still penned in Buffett's accessible style, remain models of clear thinking and quiet reassurance. Buffett is candid about mistakes and mischances, reminding everyone that even the most successful careers are built on a foundation of humility and learning. Within Berkshire's businesses, the rhythm of daily work continues. Railroad workers maintain the tracks and guide long trains across the country. Insurance agents help families recover from loss. Retailers greet customers, and factory floors buzz with the steady sound of production. For many employees, Berkshire's name stands for job security, fair treatment, and the knowledge that their efforts are appreciated as the decade unfolds. Buffett and Munger reflect more openly on the future. Both men are aware of their advancing years and the need for careful succession planning. They speak often of the culture they hope to preserve, a culture not of celebrity or ego, but of service, prudence, and respect for the daily efforts of ordinary people. Plans are made quietly, without fanfare, to ensure that when the time comes, the habits and values of Berkshire Hathaway will endure. The company's reputation only grows. Journalists, academics, and even world leaders seek out Buffett's views on everything from economics to philanthropy. Yet he remains as accessible as ever, taking calls, answering letters, and greeting visitors with a smile. The partnership with Munger remains at the center of everything, a steady beacon for all who work at or with Berkshire Hathaway. By the late 2010s, the world has changed in many ways, but the essence of Berkshire Hathaway has not. It is still a company defined by patience, discipline, and a quiet conviction that good sense will always outlast the trends of the day. Its story, now more than half a century in the making, is one of gentle progress measured, not in the excitement of a single moment, but in the steady, comforting passage of time by the final years of the 2010s. Berkshire Hathaway stands as a pillar of American capitalism, yet within its walls there is no sense of triumph or self-congratulation. The routine in Omaha is as quiet and familiar as ever. Warren Buffett, now approaching 90, walks the short distance from home to his modest office, pausing to greet the receptionist and exchange a few friendly words. He still prefers a simple breakfast, a handful of newspapers, and a stack of company reports that arrives daily in thick envelopes. Charlie Munger, equally seasoned by years, maintains his own patterns, reading for hours at a time, finding lessons in unexpected places, and answering questions with the dry wit and clarity that have long made his interviews memorable. The two partners, though more reflective than before, still meet regularly, their conversations ranging from the latest business acquisition to the philosophical lessons of a lifetime. Their mutual respect is deeper than ever, a comfort to all who depend on their guidance. Berkshire Hathaway itself has grown into a constellation of businesses. Some, like Geico, BNSF, Railway, and Dairy Queen, are household names. Others, from specialized manufacturers to energy providers, operate quietly in the background, each trusted to run independently. The central office remains strikingly lean, with a handful of long-tenured staff who manage communication and accounting, send handwritten notes, and keep the steady rhythm of the company's finances. The late 2010s bring new opportunities and new questions. The world around Berkshire is changing rapidly, shaped by technology, globalization, and new forms of competition. The stock market reaches record highs, fueled in part by companies that build their fortunes on software, networks, and vast troves of data. Berkshire, by comparison, continues to favor businesses it can understand: railroads, insurance, manufacturers, and retailers. The company's largest investments reflect this cautious philosophy, chosen for their ability to generate cash flow, withstand adversity, and endure through generations. Buffett and Munger speak often about the challenges of investing in a world filled with complexity. They explain to shareholders that it is not necessary to invest in everything or to chase every trend. Instead, they return to the lessons that have defined their lives: the power of patience, the importance of avoiding big mistakes, and the rare but valuable rewards that come from long-term ownership of extraordinary businesses. The annual meetings continue to draw tens of thousands to Omaha. For many, the gathering is as much a celebration of Berkshire's culture as a business event. Visitors stroll through exhibition halls, sampling products from Berkshire's many subsidiaries, while others wait patiently to ask Buffett or Munger a question. The tone is always gentle and inclusive. Buffett jokes about his diet. Munger dispenses aphorisms, and both men remind everyone that success comes less from brilliance than from avoiding folly and letting time do its work. As the 2020s approach, the question of succession becomes more urgent. Both Buffett and Munger have spoken publicly about the need to pass the torch. They reassure shareholders that careful plans are in place and that Berkshire's next leaders have been chosen not for charisma or pedigree, but for their commitment to the culture of humility, integrity, and rationality. Names like Ujet, Jain, and Greg Abel become more familiar, appearing in annual reports and on stage at meetings, answering questions and gradually taking on more responsibility within Berkshire's family of businesses. Daily life continues at its usual gentle pace. Railroads keep their schedules, insurance companies process claims, and retail stores open their doors each morning. There are meetings to review strategy, but they are informal and often brief. Most decisions are made locally, far from the headquarters in Omaha, with managers trusted to act in the best interest of their customers and employees. The world outside is often turbulent. News of trade wars, political shifts, and social unrest filters into the calm of Berkshire's office, but rarely disturbs its routines. During periods of market volatility, shareholders once again look to Buffett's annual letters for comfort and perspective. He reminds them that downturns are a normal part of investing, that Berkshire's strength lies in its diversity and conservatism, and that the habits of patience and prudence are more important than ever. When the COVID-19 pandemic arrives in early 2020, it brings with it uncertainty and disruption for businesses everywhere. Berkshire is not immune. Some subsidiaries close temporarily, while others work to adapt to new ways of serving customers. Through it all, Buffett and Munger maintain their routines, communicating calmly with shareholders and employees, urging everyone to keep perspective, and reminding them that this too shall pass. Buffett writes with characteristic honesty about the challenges faced, the mistakes made, and the reasons for optimism. He notes the remarkable resilience of Berkshire's businesses and the steady hand of their managers. There is no attempt to predict the future, only a renewed commitment to the timeless values that have sustained the company for so long. As the world begins to recover, Berkshire's quiet strength stands in sharp contrast to the uncertainty outside. Shareholders once again find reassurance in the company's calm leadership, its robust balance sheet, and its deeply rooted culture of trust. By the early 2020s, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are widely celebrated not only for their investment genius, but for the gentleness and wisdom with which they have led Berkshire Hathaway. Their story is one of subtle transition, not an ending, but the careful, thoughtful handing on of values, habits, and a way of thinking that can survive any storm. The company, as always, continues forward, not in leaps or stumbles, but in the steady, familiar rhythm that has defined its life from the very beginning. The early years of the 2020s are a time of great acceleration and deep uncertainty in the wider world. The aftershocks of the COVID-19 pandemic continue to ripple through society and the global economy. Inflation returns, first as a worry and then as a reality, raising the cost of everyday goods and reshaping conversations in boardrooms and kitchens alike. Technology continues to advance at a relentless pace, creating new giants and upending old ways of doing business. For Berkshire Hathaway, these years are marked not by drama, but by careful adaptation. In Omaha, the routines endure. Warren Buffett, though now in his 90s, still rises early, walks the short path to his office, and begins each day with his familiar rituals: newspapers spread out on the desk, a can of Coca-Cola, and notes in neat, looping script. Charlie Munger, equally aged but ever curious, maintains his own routines, his days filled with reading, thinking, and answering questions from shareholders and journalists. Both men are more reflective now. Their partnership is seasoned by time. Their voices softer and their laughter a bit slower, but their wisdom shines brighter than ever. Each public appearance is cherished by Berkshire's followers, who sense that an era is quietly passing. At the annual meeting, which now draws a global online audience in addition to the devoted thousands who still make the journey to Omaha, there is a new sense of gratitude, recognition of the decades of steady guidance, gentle humor, and practical lessons shared by Buffett and Munger. Inside Berkshire Hathaway, the daily cadence of work continues almost unchanged. Headquarters remains modest. The handful of staff, many of whom have been with the company for decades, coordinate the flow of information between Omaha and the dozens of independently managed businesses that make up the Berkshire family. Communication is still informal. Handwritten notes, short phone calls, and friendly greetings in the hallway. For the managers of Berkshire's operating companies, life goes on with its own rhythms. At BNSF Railway, engineers guide freight trains across the continent, facing new challenges from supply chain disruptions and labor shortages, but doing so with the same professionalism and calm that have defined the railroad for over a century. At GEICO, insurance agents help customers navigate the shifting landscape of risk, adjusting policies and answering questions, always mindful of the company's legacy of service and honesty. Some businesses within Berkshire are challenged by inflation and changing consumer habits. Retailers adjust their inventories and marketing. Manufacturers monitor costs with extra care. And utilities invest in new technologies to meet the demands of a world increasingly focused on sustainability. Through it all, the approach remains patient and conservative. There are no sudden lurches or dramatic pivots. Decisions are made carefully, after much thought and discussion. The culture of autonomy and trust, cultivated over generations, allows each business to respond in its own way, guided by local knowledge and experience. During this period, succession becomes an even more prominent topic. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger speak candidly about the future, both at the annual meeting and in their widely read letters to shareholders. They reassure everyone that Berkshire's next generation of leaders is ready. Ajit, Jine, and Greg able take on greater public roles, answering questions, presenting results, and gradually becoming the faces of Berkshire's future. Buffett, reflecting on the transition, often remarks that the company's culture is its greatest asset. He explains that while managers may change and markets may shift, the habits of trust, humility, and careful stewardship are what will allow Berkshire to endure. He continues to write annual letters that mix candor with optimism, celebrating the daily work of thousands across Berkshire's businesses and reminding everyone that, in the end, it is the slow accumulation of small, wise decisions that matters. Most the world outside can seem frantic. Markets swing with every headline. Technology promises ever greater speed and convenience, but also brings new risks and uncertainties. Social changes accelerate, as do debates about the future of capitalism, climate, and community. In this environment, Berkshire's commitment to old-fashioned virtuosity thrift, patience feels both comforting and quietly radical. Buffett and Munger, for all their success, remain modest in their habits. Buffett still lives in the same Omaha house he bought decades ago. He continues to eat simply, drive himself to work, and greet visitors with a handshake and a smile. Munger, similarly, values routine and simplicity. Their example sets a tone that ripples outward, encouraging employees, managers, and shareholders to find satisfaction in steady work, clear thinking, and fair dealing. As the middle of the decade approaches, Berkshire Hathaway continues to make carefully chosen investments. The company's portfolio reflects both continuity and adaptation. Major holdings remain in sectors like insurance, transportation, and consumer goods, but there are also forays into technology, energy infrastructure, and international businesses. Each new investment is considered with the same discipline as always. Is the business understandable? Does it have a durable advantage? Is it managed by people of character? And is the price sensible? Shareholders, especially those who have been with Berkshire for many years, draw comfort from the company's steadiness. During periods of market volatility, they look to Buffett's letters and the annual meeting for perspective. Time and again, the message is the same. Do not be swept away by excitement or fear. Stay focused on the long term, and let the quiet, persistent force of compounding do its work. In the everyday life of Berkshire Hathaway, the passing years bring subtle changes, but no loss of purpose. Offices are updated, new technologies are adopted, and younger leaders take on greater responsibility, but the underlying culture, patiently built over decades, continues to shape decisions large and small. The names on the office doors may gradually change, but the habits remain. Buffett and Munger, aware of their legacy, spend more time reflecting on the meaning of success. For them, it has never been about money alone, but about building something enduring, a company where employees are treated well, where shareholders are partners rather than customers, and where honesty is not just a slogan but a daily practice. By the close of the middle 2020s, Berkshire Hathaway stands not just as a giant of business, but as a symbol of quiet resilience in a restless world. Its routines, modest, careful, and reassuring, continue to offer a kind of comfort that is increasingly rare as the late 2020s arrive. A quiet sense of anticipation settles over Berkshire Hathaway and its vast family of businesses. For decades, the company's identity has been inseparable from the partnership of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Their steady routines in Omaha, and the calm wisdom they have dispensed from the stage of the annual meeting and the pages of their letters. Now, with both men entering their mid to late 90s, the moment of transition is near, not a sharp break, but a carefully planned, almost seamless passing of the torch. Each morning in Omaha, the sun still rises over the same modest office buildings. Warren Buffett still begins his day early, reading newspapers, studying reports, and writing notes in his neat hand. Charlie Munger, now less frequently in the office, but always present in spirit, keeps up his own habits of reading, reflecting, and, when possible, joining in conversation. The two men's influence is felt everywhere, etched into the habits of staff, echoed in the language of shareholder letters, and preserved in the gentle culture that defines Berkshire Hathaway. By now, Greg, Abel, and Ujit Jean are more visible than ever, quietly leading important divisions and taking on greater responsibility for daily operations. They meet regularly with Buffett and the senior team, discussing strategy, reviewing the health of each subsidiary, and, above all, upholding the values of trust, patience, and rationality that have made Berkshire unique. The leadership transition is never rushed. Buffett and Munger have spent years mentoring their successors, introducing them to shareholders at annual meetings, and gradually stepping back from day-to-day decision-making. Throughout the late 2020s, the rhythm of Berkshire's central office continues unchanged. Employees, many of whom have worked at the company for decades, maintain their routines, secure in the knowledge that the heart of Berkshire remains steady. Handwritten notes and informal phone calls still set the tone for communication, and there is an easy familiarity among the team that only time and shared experience can create. The annual meeting, now streamed online to a worldwide audience, retains its gentle spirit. Attendees both in person and virtual listen as Greg Abel, Ujit Jean, and other senior leaders answer questions with the same patience and clarity that Buffett and Munger modeled for so many years. At times, Buffett joins in by video or in person, offering reflections, stories, and encouragement to the next generation. Munger, when able, does the same. Their presence, though less central, is still a source of comfort and continuity. Within Berkshire's many businesses, the world keeps turning. At BNSF Railway, trains run on schedule, shipments move reliably across the continent, and workers greet each other at dawn and dusk as they always have. In Geico offices and call centers, agents continue helping customers with the steady courtesy that has earned the company its reputation. Retailers, Manufacturers and energy companies all go about their business, guided by managers who were chosen for their independence, judgment, and understanding of Berkshire's culture. Some businesses face challenges, rising costs, changing customer preferences, and technological disruptions. Yet the approach remains the same: patient, deliberate, and rooted in trust. Subsidiary managers know they have the autonomy to make decisions for their local markets, and the central office stands ready to support them with advice or resources if needed. There is no rush to change what works, but there is also a quiet openness to new ideas and gradual improvement. Berkshire's investment portfolio continues to evolve. While the core remains in industries that provide stability and cash flow insurance, energy, transportation, there are also thoughtful investments in technology and international opportunities. Each choice is made after long discussion and careful consideration, with the focus always on durability, ethical management, and reasonable valuation. The company's reputation for honesty and fair dealing only grows in importance. In an era of rapid technological advancement and shifting societal expectations, Berkshire Hathaway stands as an example of what can be accomplished when a company puts trust, transparency, and humility at the center of its operations. Shareholders continue to value the company not just for its returns, but for the peace of mind that comes from knowing their investment is managed with care and integrity. Throughout the late 2020s, the story of Berkshire Hathaway is one of both change and continuity. The old routines persist: early mornings, long reading sessions, handwritten notes, and thoughtful meetings, but new faces are gradually taking the lead. Employees and shareholders alike find comfort in the fact that the transition is slow, gentle, and filled with respect for the company's traditions. Buffett and Munger, reflecting on their journey, express gratitude for the opportunity to have served as stewards of Berkshire. They share stories of past decisions, the lessons learned from mistakes, and the quiet joy of seeing their company and its people thrive. They remind everyone that the secret to Berkshire's success was never a stroke of genius or a lucky break, but the persistent practice of good habits, clear thinking, and a refusal to be swayed by the noise of the crowd as the decade draws to a close. The rhythm of Berkshire Hathaway is as steady as ever. The company is not defined by its founders alone, but by a culture that lives on in every decision, every meeting, and every ordinary day. The gentle transition from one generation to the next is almost complete, and with it, the quiet assurance that the habits and values of the past will continue to guide the company long into the future. As the 2020s give way to the early years of the 2030s, the atmosphere within Berkshire Hathaway is defined by gentle change rather than disruption. The office in Omaha is as unassuming as ever. Morning light filters through familiar windows, casting long shadows across desks arranged as they have been for decades. Staff arrive quietly, greeting each other with the comfort of old friends. The walls are adorned with simple photographs, some recent, some faded reminders of the long arc of Berkshire's story and the people who have shaped it. Warren Buffett, now in the twilight of his years, is less frequently seen in the office, but his presence is felt everywhere. Letters and notes from him are treasured, passed around with respect, and referenced in meetings, large and small. Charlie Munger, though perhaps now present only in memory and anecdote, continues to guide conversations through his oft-repeated sayings and the example of his analytical rigor. Their partnership, though now part of the company's past, is the quiet underpinning of its every action. Greg Abel and Ujit Jean, alongside a new generation of leaders, have fully stepped into the roles once held by Buffett and Munger. Their approach is careful, patient, and deeply respectful of tradition. They continue to lead meetings in the same style as their predecessors, informal, open to discussion, and grounded in the philosophy that has always guided Berkshire Hathaway. Daily routines have not changed much. Morning starts with reading, as staff and executives pore over company updates, industry reports, and the latest financials. There is a comfortable silence as decisions are weighed, questions raised, and insights quietly shared over cups of coffee. At headquarters, the atmosphere is collaborative. Younger staff, who have joined in recent years, quickly absorb the ethos of the place: humility, patience, and a willingness to listen. There is no rush, no sense of crisis, even when outside events might seem urgent. When news arrives from the wider world about volatile markets, technological upheavals, or changes in regulation, the first response at Berkshire is always to pause, reflect, and resist the urge to react hastily. The annual shareholder meeting, now a tradition stretching back many decades, continues as a highlight of the year. Omaha fills with visitors from around the world, both longtime investors and newcomers, drawn by stories of Berkshire's stability and the personal wisdom that has been shared year after year. The tone of the meeting has shifted a little with the new leadership, but the spirit remains unchanged. Presentations are thoughtful and candid. Executives answer questions with care, always making time for the patient explanation and the honest admission of what is not yet known. During these meetings, the memory of Buffett and Munger is honored. Short video tributes are played, stories are shared, and lessons are retold in their own words. Their photographs and favorite sayings are displayed throughout the conference hall, lending a sense of calm and continuity. New leaders often refer to the Buffett way or Charlie's checklist when discussing decisions or explaining strategy. It is clear to all present that, while the people in charge may change, the values remain. Across Berkshire's many subsidiaries, the quiet habits of work continue. In the rail yards, conductors start their shifts before sunrise, ensuring freight moves safely and efficiently across the country. In insurance offices, agents help clients navigate new risks, always with a patient ear and a steady hand. Manufacturing floors hum with activity, retailers open their doors each morning, and energy projects move forward one carefully considered step at a time. Managers at these companies have grown used to the Berkshire style. They expect to be trusted, to be given freedom, but also to be held to high standards of honesty and stewardship. Headquarters checks in regularly, but with a light touch. There are no sudden changes in policy, no sweeping reorganizations. Instead, guidance arrives through conversation and quiet example. Staff at all levels are encouraged to ask questions, learn from mistakes, and remember that their work is part of something much larger and longer lasting than any single year or project. Investment decisions remain cautious and deliberate. The central question is always, does this opportunity align with Berkshire's values and its need for durability? Large bets are rare, and when they are made, they are the result of months or years of study. The company continues to favor businesses with strong fundamentals, loyal customers, and managers who care for their employees. It is not unusual for leaders to spend hours discussing a potential acquisition, reviewing not only financials but also the reputation and culture of the target company. The world outside Berkshire's walls continues to move quickly. New technologies reshape entire industries. Global politics bring new challenges, and financial markets swing with every headline. Within Berkshire, however, the pace remains gentle and thoughtful. Employees and shareholders take comfort in this steadiness, knowing that their company is built on the same foundations that have sustained it through recessions, bubbles, booms, and busts. As the early 2030s progress, the culture of Berkshire Hathaway stands as its most valuable asset. It is a culture of patience, honesty, and respect for the small details of daily work. Staff gather for modest celebrations when goals are met. Letters from headquarters praise not only big successes but also the quiet, consistent performance of teams and individuals. Mistakes are discussed openly, not to assign blame, but to learn and improve. The feeling is not one of corporate competition, but of shared stewardship and ongoing commitment to pass on something worthwhile to the next generation. The company continues to attract business owners looking for a safe home for what they have built. Sellers are reassured by the promise that their life's work will not be dismantled or radically changed. Employees at acquired firms often comment on the peace of mind that comes from joining Berkshire, the knowledge that stability and care are not just promises but everyday realities. For shareholders, the company remains a source of comfort and trust. The annual reports, though now written by a new hand, maintain the tone of candor and clarity that Buffett established. The focus is always on the long term, on avoiding big mistakes, and on the enduring rewards of steady compounding growth. Shareholders are reminded, gently and often, that success at Berkshire is measured not in quarterly headlines but in decades of patient, prudent decision-making. By the close of the first years of the 2030s, Berkshire Hathaway stands as both a living legacy and a continuing promise. It is a place where old habits are cherished, new leaders are welcomed, and daily routines offer both comfort and quiet satisfaction. The story is not one of drama, but of resilience, patience, and the enduring value of good habits and shared purpose. As the first years of the 2020s unfold, Berkshire Hathaway stands steady in the midst of a changing world. Its headquarters in Omaha remains a place of simple, reassuring routines. Each morning, a small and familiar team gathers. Newspapers are read at quiet desks. Company reports are studied in the soft light of early day, and gentle conversations pass between colleagues who have shared many years together. Warren Buffett, now in his 90s, has become an elder statesman not only of Berkshire Hathaway, but of American business. He is seen less often in the office, but his influence is everywhere. His handwritten notes are kept and reread, his advice and gentle humor recalled at meetings and in daily decisions. Charlie Munger, also well into his 90s, has a similar presence. His words and lessons echo in the company's hallways, in the candid conversations at shareholder gatherings, and in the thoughtful ways managers consider each choice. The annual shareholder meeting continues to draw visitors from around the world. Some come for financial insights, but many simply come for the comfort and clarity of hearing Buffett and Munger speak. These meetings are marked by patience, gentle humor, and a spirit of openness. Stories of past mistakes are told with humility. Lessons about character and restraint are shared, and shareholders are encouraged to think for themselves and to be wary of trends that promise too much too quickly. Greg Abel and Ujit Jain, along with a new generation of Berkshire leaders, have taken on more responsibility. They lead with a quiet confidence that reflects the traditions of the company. Their decisions are careful and patient, guided by the same questions that Buffett and Munger have asked for decades. Is the business understandable? Is the leadership trustworthy? Will this decision serve the company and its people for many years to come? Across Berkshire's many subsidiaries, daily life continues with its own gentle rhythm. Freight trains move across the country, insurance agents help customers through uncertain times, and factory workers begin each shift with quiet pride in their work. Retailers unlock their doors to the morning's first customers, and managers walk the floor, greeting their teams and listening to concerns. Each of these routines is part of a culture built on trust, honesty, and long-term thinking. In these years, the world outside sometimes feels unpredictable. Markets rise and fall. Technology reshapes industries. Economic news fills the headlines with a mixture of hope and anxiety. Yet inside Berkshire, there is a steady confidence that comes from habits built over decades. Even when challenges arise, the first response is to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully rather than react in haste. Buffett's annual letters are as clear and humble as ever. He reminds shareholders that patience is their greatest advantage. He writes openly about the company's successes and failures, and he always brings the focus back to the value of honest work and good character. Munger, too, shares his wisdom at every opportunity. His advice is simple and powerful. Avoid envy, think clearly, and always keep learning. As younger staff and leaders grow into their roles, they carry forward the habits that have made Berkshire what it is. They listen to employees at every level, value modesty over showmanship, and believe in the strength of small, repeated acts of discipline. The transition is gradual, respectful, and never rushed. At each stage, the company honors its past even as it adapts quietly to a changing future. For those who work at Berkshire Hathaway, and for shareholders around the world, the comfort of daily routine and steady leadership brings peace of mind. The company's story is not one of sudden triumphs or dramatic upheaval, but of gentle persistence and deep trust. It stands as proof that, even in restless times, success can be found in patience, humility, and the steady care of people and capital. As the day draws to a close, and the offices in Omaha grow quiet, the story of Berkshire Hathaway settles gently into memory. It is a story not of excitement, but of reassurance, not of glamour, but of comfort. It is the slow unfolding of many ordinary days, carefully lived and quietly remarkable. As you listen, allow yourself to feel the calm that comes from a life built on routine, from work done honestly, and from the quiet confidence that comes with each thoughtful decision. May this gentle story help you rest, and may the lessons of Berkshire Hathaway guide you softly into sleep. Good night.